Redditors who have cheated death by missing a flight, calling in sick, missing the bus, etc. What happened and did it change your perspective on life? Typical not me, but my sister. She used to really like to hang out with friends. That particular day I was outside doing chores, so she had no car. Some friends called her and told her they could give her a ride. That day our mom was having none of my sister's shenanigans and decided that they were going grocery shopping and no parties till shopping was over. My sister threw a little tantrum but eventually went with my mom instead. I come back from my chores and see my sis and mom on the kitchen table. My sis is sobbing and my mom in shock. Turns out the car that was supposed to be giving her a ride crashed. It spun several times due to high speeds and all 5 people on board were killed, including a heavily pregnant girl and her unborn baby. My sister thanked my mom for standing her ground and ignoring the mini tantrum she threw. My mom saved my life when I was 2. I went in for that 2-year-old checkup men a parent skip. While at the doctor's office my mom commented how I seemed to stand crooked, so the doctor took and looked and noticed a lump near my kidney. It was a cancerous tumor known as Wilms tumor. To understand the rarity, in every 100 kids that have leukemia only one has Wilms tumor. I was at one. In less than a week of chemo and tests I was having my right kidney removed. As a kid I often ignored it, just being annoyed how I can't do contact sports due to my parents' fear of my injuring my lone kidney. But I'm 19 years clear now. My mom is now very good about the better safe than sorry when it comes to odd health issues. I'll always be thankful for that. And of course have also gotten into going to the doctor for odd things. Those trips 9/10 my doctor. Links to a defect due to chemo at a young age. My frizzy hair. My deformed chest and my horrible underbite that I had braces on for 6 years to correct. But hey, I'm alive, my kidney is enlarged and learned to do the work of 2, and I'm currently trying to chase some dreams. Who knows where I would be if my mom just shrugged off me being a little crooked. TLDR. Mom noticed I was crooked in the tub. Took to 2 years doctor appointment, discovered it was rare cancerous tumor. Saved my life. I had an odd one once. I got a call off an old friend I hadn't seen in ages. Arranged to meet in King's Cross Underground Station. Didn't know what to do, so when we met we went for a walk in the station. Something I've never done before or since. Anyway, we walked for a good hour. From platform to platform. Then left. Got home and found out the big King's Cross fire had taken place. What was odd was that we chose that day of all days to take a stroll there. My former Bill was supposed to go the Batman premiere at the theater that was shot up in Aurora. He was sick though, so cancelled his plans. His friends still went and survived. My Bill was a little freaked up after that for a while, but long term hasn't changed at all. There's this reoccurring theme of people having survived terrorist events. It reminds me just how much of a problem terrorism really is. It is so far reaching. We really have to come together as a society and stop this madness. My family and I went to the beach in South India on the 25th of December 2004. On the 26th, the tsunami hit and a lot of people died, so it's crazy to think that could have been me if I went just a day later. Though, it hasn't really changed my perspective on life or anything. I just consider myself lucky. Mumbai terror attack. Was supposed to be there, but my friend got some weird case of culture shock and really wanted to get out of Mumbai ASAP, so we hurriedly took the night bus the day before. I saw someone reading a paper the next day, quickly bought one, and showed it to my friend. She was like, OMG, we were supposed to be there. We are like those people who dodged 9/11 because their kid got sick. This was actually the 3rd time I properly cheated death, because I also survived a suicide attempt earlier. And fell down from pretty high as a child, to the point my mom thought I wasn't coming back. I joke that I'm hard to kill. To be honest, though, it's mostly for the first few weeks you feel a bit on edge and pump adrenaline and get the idea you need to do something special with your life. I do remember that maybe for 3 weeks or so, it became very crystal clear what I wanted in life, then it faded. On God days I still think I might still have a useful part to play on this earth. But to be honest, I don't really believe in predestination. What it has taught me is to not delay things you really want. Not me, but my dad. He was a Marine. He had joined before Vietnam had started, so when the war really got going he only had a little time left before his service was up. He's a helicopter mechanic and his unit was scheduled to head over. Because of his short time remaining, he didn't go with them. That helicopter was shot down and everyone died. I wouldn't have been born if he had gone with. Was on a bus that had a major accident but realized I had forgotten my keys, so had to get off before it started driving. Turned out there was a massive galac right above my seat and the top started burning and then exploded, sending 3 people badly burnt to the hospital. So probably wouldn't have died but would have a nasty burn. Didn't change crap though. Can't go around being afraid of life. Back in the day I had a girlfriend that lived just over the Texas-Oklahoma border. I would spend the weekend with her and go home late Sunday. My routine was to leave her house at midnight and stop at the local gas station for lunch items when I hit my town 30 minutes later. She managed to talk me into staying the night, which I never had before, and I reluctantly did. Found out the next day the store was robbed, with the clerk and a customer being executed in the back office, right around the time I usually showed up. TLDR. She cheated on me a few years later. 2 bullets dodged, one her, one from a robber's gun. I'm a little late to this, but a friend and I were at the Boston Marathon right before the bomb went off. I was standing next to the trash can where the device was stowed, but left 15 minutes before it detonated because my friend and I were getting hungry. Honestly, I don't think about it much, but I felt pretty lucky at the time. Not me, but my uncle. One September morning he was taking a crap at work when he heard and felt an explosion. He finished his crap, washed his hands, and went back to the office, only to find that the entire office was empty of people. The second plane hit only a few stories above his office. My aunt normally walked by the Twin Towers in NYC to get to work. On the 11th of September, 2001, she decided to take a different route. She listens to her intuition a lot more frequently now. This actually happened to me a few days ago, driving a couple hours away from home to pick up my girlfriend. I was driving, but I decided to pull over because I thought I heard a noise coming from my car. 10 seconds later the car that was behind me sped up and went next to a semi that was parked. The semi out of nowhere merged back onto the road and completely destroyed the car. I didn't stick around to see if the person survived. Not at all likely, but I have been thinking about it since it happened. I'll say I've been a lot more productive with my time lately and have thought about making a will in case something like that were to happen. I feel very lucky. In the penultimate week of term at university 2 Christmases ago, I started to feel ill with stomach and back pain but ignored it because I didn't want to bother anyone. Fast forward a week and I had woken up in the night sweating, feeling sick and shaking. I still tried to ignore it until that evening, when I couldn't find any paracetamol in my room and had no tea bags to make a brew. So I staggered to A&E where I all but collapsed in the waiting room. Turns out I had a bladder infection that spread to my kidneys and eventually led to sepsis, and was going into septic shock. If I had found painkillers and had tea bags, I would have gone to sleep and not woken up. Tea remains my favorite beverage, but I don't ignore my body anymore when it says something is wrong. My mom and I were heading to a department store to do some Christmas shopping. On the way, we saw a restaurant we hadn't seen in a while and decided to stop, and ended up running into some people we know. While we were at the restaurant, someone walked into the department store with a rifle and started shooting people. My uncle missed the bus one day because he couldn't find his laptop charger. That day was the 7th of July 2005, and there was a bomb on the bus that killed 13 people. Coming home from work one night and my driver's side window blew out. I had no idea what happened, but I was pee. The next morning I go out to my car to take the door apart to and pick up some glass. There was a bullet hole in the rear pillar next to my rear windshield. It went through the top left of my seat and hit my driver's side window. There was a hole in my hoodie right above my shoulder next to my neck. I called out sick to work and decided to head over to my gym. As I was driving, this lady is in the street being chased by a truck. He hit the curb and almost struck a wall and she ran by screaming. I let her in my car and drove her to the nearest police station. The lady had the most terrified look on her face and had the most erratic breathing. She had bruises all over and said he was trying to kill her for leaving him. I watched her get into the station and then I went to the gym. Not me, but a lady I worked with was in NYC visiting family on 9/11. We all knew she was in NYC and were concerned about her. She called into work the next day to say she was fine, but her family had been planning on visiting the World Trade Center that morning, but they had all slept in. She never really talked about it after that, but I would imagine quite a few people have a very similar story from that day. A few months ago, my husband and I decided to try a restaurant in our area that we had talked about going to for years, but it just never happened. It was a well-rated gastropub sports bar kind of thing with a higher end menu. We finally planned to go on the following Sunday when we had childcare. It was Super Bowl Sunday by chance. My grandmother was going to watch my daughter that day while we went to eat, but got a sudden work offer at the end of the week for Sunday. She's a musician, so we flipped the plans to go Saturday instead. No big deal. We went. We ate. It was relatively uneventful. The place was dead as a doornail. We were the only people in the dining room. We did witness the owner of the restaurant accepting illegal Super Bowl bets, however, and we hear him saying how he expects a constant full house tomorrow, etc. Best day of the year for him. When we heard that, my husband and I said to each other we were glad it worked out this way. We hadn't considered we would be dealing with a crowd the next night and aren't into that, so we were glad our time frame had changed. The following Monday we hear that in the evening when we would have been there was a kitchen explosion and fire that quickly leveled the place. Most people got out from the bar area with ample exits, but many did not, as the place was jammed to capacity and the dining room that we sat in had only one exit, which walks you directly past the kitchen, and another door that opened into the kitchen itself. That's where we sat. The room had tables for probably 50 people, and the windows had those decorative iron rails on the outside, so it was effectively a trap. The place is gone now. I mean gone. The chill it put down my body when I heard what happened was insane. It took the breath right out of me. As far as how it changed me, I am just grateful and humbled. I think about it often. We would have orphaned our preschooler. It's a scary thought for sure. I've also learned to be more aware of my surroundings and don't accept a seat in an enclosed room like that. I do a quick safety check that we can exit from more than one direction and make sure we aren't right on top of the kitchen. If a restaurant is only set up that way, we don't eat there. We have immediately left places before, but not without telling this story to them and suggesting they create a new exit. It may sound like fear-mongering, and I've gotten eye rolls and such, but 24 hours was the difference of my child having a mother or not. It's something I will never forget. Might get buried. When I was younger, I snuck out of the house to go meet my friends at like 2 am. This is in Singapore, so cabs were pretty abundant at that time of night where my house was, but for some reason that night, none of the cabs stopped for me. Literally 5-6 cabs just went by, one after another. I was quite pissed off, so I was very aware of the number plates of the cabs. A few seconds after the last cab went by, one finally stopped. When I got to the highway, about 2 minutes away from my house, there was a massive traffic jam. At 2 am, I was already pissed off about being held back by the non-stopping taxis, and now there was a traffic jam. When the cab I was in finally reaching the end of the jam, I saw that it was caused by a massive traffic accident. At least 3 ambulances, and I saw a bunch of teens in stretchers, sitting on the roads, and in the cars. It included a 2-car pileup, 1 car turned turtle, and a cab which was smashed up and facing the wrong direction, which had the plates of the last cab I missed. I swear to God I lost my breath. Now I'm completely aware that if I got into that cab, we might have missed it by mere seconds, or I could have been in an even worse accident. Wifey and I went to St. Thomas. First evening out, we hail a cab for a night on the town. Me, wifey and driver get out of the cab and he gives us a few pointers about where to find what. I pay him, give him a nice tip and turn to cross the road. I look to my left. No cars are coming, so I lean forward to hustle across the street. I feel a strong tug on the back collar of my shirt. My front foot goes up in the air. I hear a loud horn honk and a car whizzes by from my right going 55+ mph. Like the UK, in St. Thomas travel lanes are reversed from the States. Had the cabbie not yanked me back, I would have surely been dead or wished that I was. I think of it from time to time. I always wonder if the cab driver knew what he did. As for change, when friends mention they are traveling to a country that has reversed traffic direction, I tell them about this occurrence and make sure I have their attention. Not sure if this applies or not, but when I was about 15 my parents were debating on whether or not to go ATVing or horseback riding when on vacation. We decided horseback riding because I couldn't drive the ATVs until I was 16, so we decided it would be better to all do horseback riding. So we were about 1/4 of a mile from the ranch when my horse says, "Frick you dude, I wanna be the first one back to the ranch IDGAF if I am not the lead horse." Given I had no idea where we were or how close we were to the ranch. So my horse goes full gallop back Totty Ranch. This was the first time I had ever been on a horse, mind you. So I just decide to go full on jockey and stand up. The horse make a 90-degree turn back to the ranch and my saddle slips sideways. I decide to put my hand down and fall, but my foot gets caught in the stirrup, so he drags me about 50 feet and my foot comes undone and I roll 2-3 times in the sand. After I get up all I could think was that was freaking awesome. But looking back I could have gone full on Christopher Reeves. I was very lucky, and while I don't think I cheated death, I still could have been in a world of hurt if things didn't go exactly the way they did. This ranch also has had issues with their horses in the past. One ripped a kid's cheek off with his mouth, throwing him against the wall. After 3 surgeries to repair his salivary glands he ended up okay. Needless to say, horseback riding is no longer a suggestion on family vacations 12 years later. Not my story but my dad's. My dad was supposed to fly to LA on 9/11 on AA Flight 77. At the time, if he and his co-workers took that flight they'd have had to go straight from the airport to their business meeting. Now we know they would have died. My dad was kinda pissed his company had scheduled the flight that way, so he cancelled it and chose a flight for 9/10 so he and his co-workers could sleep the night before and get breakfast before the meeting. They still send him thank you cards emails every year around 9/11 for saving their life. This very moment taught me to trust your gut instinct. Little context. This was when I had just graduated from high school and got a job. Still living at home and working closings. I would usually stay over at my friends. We'd play video games and such, but took time every night to stretch our legs and go down to the gas station for snacks. Jump forward one night and we get to the intersection about a mile or so from our destination. I stopped dead in my tracks and felt sickeningly uneasy. We looked at each other and all I said was, "Let's go to Speedway." He didn't even question me and we continued on like normal until we saw 3-4-ish cruisers fly down the main road. We took a major loop back through some houses because why not be nosy little shoots. We got to the UDF we usually went to, meaning we had gone every night for about 7 weeks at this point except a few opening shifts. And before we even got close the police were telling us to clear out. We had took off to home as fast as we could and finished the night in confusion and terror. We were woken up by my friend's grandmother nearly breaking the door down early in the morning. We then learned that the UDF was shot up that night. Trust your gut, kids. I woke up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. I was having a hard time moving and thinking much, which I chalked up to being extremely groggy in the middle of the night. I wake up on the tile with my parents in the bathroom with me. I wasn't groggy, I was having an aura, warning sign for a seizure. Had I not woken up when I did, I would not have escaped with nothing more than a broken nose. Not me but my grandpa. He was part of World War II on a Navy supply ship. He ended up having to stay ashore to do an illness. While he was in the hospital his ship was sunk and most of the people on board died. It was in the hospital where he met my grandma. She was his nurse. Obligatory not me but my parents. My dad was being moved by his company from Amsterdam to Kuala Lumpur. They had the going away party at his office and all the big shots all came down to give him gifts and awards for his service at that location. After all is said and done he and my mom printed their tickets and were just about to head to the airport. Right before they left for the airport my dad received a call from his boss that the regional VP would be coming down on short notice the following day and that he wanted him to do a handover exit report presentation with the VP. He tried to explain his way out of it considering he would miss his flight if he stayed another day but to no avail. My dad was very much annoyed. He had to reschedule their flight, extend their car rental, hotel reservations, as everything was sold shipped, just for a 1-hour meeting. The flight that my parents missed was MH17, shot down over eastern Ukraine. The consequences of the incident wasn't lost on him. He went from being a very career-oriented, results-driven, an achievement-based man to one who seemed to enjoy life a lot more. He ended up retiring soon after that at 53 and is now living his life to the fullest. He just picked up Zumba and hiking and is traveling to exotic countries most months out of the year. All in all, it worked out well for him. My first adult job after graduating was at a maximum security prison. They offered a 5k sign-on bonus, plus paid some additional money for schooling, so I thought it was a win-win. I had worked all morning in the yard before getting ready to go home. We were short-staffed, so I was volunteered to cover a call-in for Cell House, which at the time was our worst cell house and had the most violent offenders there. I had changed out my keys and everything when I got told someone called in for comms and I was going to go cover that call-in as I was comms trained. I passed my keys off to another female officer and told her I would see her at the end of the shift. Later on, both officers in the cell house were attacked by inmates during dinner time and the officer that took my place was killed. Apparently they had planned on attacking the officers for a while and caught both by surprise. I was the one that made the call for outside medical. It left me feeling like maybe if I hadn't switched with her, no one would have gotten killed. I was 5 months pregnant with my second child and waiting for the cross lights to turn green after I finished work. My lights turned green to walk, and just as I stepped out, I stopped myself and before I knew it an SUV had come straight around the corner that I was just about to step into with no freaking care that he not only went through a red light but nearly run me over. See, also, this happens a lot to me. I definitely have a guardian angel looking out for me. This isn't the only time it's happened, but the most memorable for me. My father was in the military in the 1950s. He had just gotten leave and was seated in a military passenger plane for a flight home. Just before takeoff the crew called for him specifically. An officer had just arrived and was going to take his seat. My father had the lowest rank so he was booted. He got off, and the officer got on. The plane took off and crashed. Everyone died, and here I am today. Can I answer for my best friend? She had started work in the Pentagon the week before 9/11. She and her new co-workers were scheduled to be in a meeting at 9:30 that morning, but she was running late because she had to use the restroom. As she was washing her hands, she heard a boom and felt the building shake. When she came out, there was smoke and chaos everywhere. The fire barriers were coming down and they were going to be trapped in the section that was, or appeared to be, on fire. A young Marine knew where the override button was that stopped the barrier's descent and she was able to get out of that section. She exited at the river entrance and walked through the metro bus depot on her way to her friend's home in Crystal City. When she got to the overpass, she looked back at the Pentagon and realized the point of impact was at the conference room where her meeting should have been held. All of her new co-workers were dead. Her name means grace and she said she felt it was God's grace that allowed her to live. She's been even more determined to serve him every day since. This story is fake, or at least you have the details very wrong. The Pentagon did not have closing fire barriers that would trap you. It follows NFPA codes. It does have one doors as smoke barriers, but those open with the press of a very big and obvious button and can fairly easily be torn down in a crowd crush panic situation. Not me, but my mom worked next to Century 21, across the street from the World Trade Center. My mom didn't feel like going to work and she said it is more believable if you call in on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So that Tuesday, she called in. Best decision she made. No change as far as I could see in her, though since then, she realized how much she is loved as everyone in my family called her as they knew where she worked as well. Not me, but my aunt worked at the World Trade Center. She went in late on 9/11 to pay a parking ticket. I was in school in the suburbs when the attacks happened. My history teacher took us out to see the skyline so we could watch history happen. I watched the second tower get hit and we hauled butt back inside. I thought for sure she was dead. They put a big butt TV in the auditorium. I remember seeing the people jump out of the buildings and looking for my aunt. When I came home, it was the first time I saw my father cry. The phone lines were clogged. She called later that night blessing the name of the officer who gave her that dang parking ticket. I'm going to keep this short, but I had the chance to go to Japan in April of 2011, and I would have been in the area affected by the disaster. Thankfully, I was sick, and I'm a lazy frick, so a common cold kept me home. My boyfriend at the time and I had planned to go into Boston. We lived in NH to see the race and do some shopping. I came down with a migraine so we didn't go. When I was a child, less than 5, I fell off the back of a speedboat while out on the lake with my family. The brand new life vest I was wearing was faulty and began absorbing water, turning it into a rather large set of bricks. Luckily, some people on a banana boat inflatable raft happened to be nearby and got to me before I drowned. A few years later, around 9, I was at the river with my dad while we was doing a job. A few of us kids got caught in a whirlpool and it pulled us all under. My dad grabbed me and my uncle grabbed my brother and his kid. My dad made it back to the shore with me, but my uncle had a heart attack while trying to make it back, dropping his kid and my brother back into the river. They all died. I lived because my dad grabbed me and not my brother. Those are just 2 of the myriad of different things in my life I've managed to barely avoid dying to. 2 house fires, traffic accident, an earthquake, and I can't really say for sure if it's changed my perspective on life, as it's been happening for as long as I can remember. I was 16 years old and a sophomore at Columbine High School when the shooting happened. Every single day my friends and I would take the car my older brother and I shared from the senior parking lot out to lunch. Only juniors and seniors got to park on campus. Everyone else had to park at Clement Park, next to the school. Lunch was only about 40 minutes so I was the only sophomore in my group of friends who had a car in the lot. The 20th of April, 1999 I wasn't feeling well and for the first time since my 16th day in October, we were going to stay at school for lunch. Can't say my friends were happy to have to eat cafeteria food in lieu of fast food from the mall's food court, but no one said much. A few minutes later the shooting started out by the student lot. My friends and I were able to escape by running up the stairs and out the front of the school. I found out later my older brother was also sick and had taken the car home. Had I not decided to stay at school, my friends and I would have all been out in the parking lot. I don't know if we would have been shot, but we would have been witness to a lot more. How has it changed me? Well, 16-year-old me felt sorry for myself and carried the victim mentality around for a long time. I didn't see that I got out alive. I just knew my high school got shot up. Fast forward to 34-year-old me, this and other experiences have made me eternally grateful for life and love and everything else the world has to offer. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.